Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to brief you about a shooting that occurred this morning at the landing at Four Corners, which is on Highway 192, just off of Highway 27 in the edge of Polk County. And here's what occurred. I'm going to give you a summation of the information that we have up to this point. And of course, all of this is subject to change as the investigation goes on. But we have our victim, Divine Pritchett. He's a black male. He's 19 years of age. He was staying down the road with some friends in the Best Western, and there were about 5 or 6 of them all together. We learned at about 4 a.m. this morning from his friends that he dropped some acid, and that's their terminology. They used acid, and he just freaked out and left. He was wearing a pair of shorts, no shirt, and only had socks on. So he ends up in this apartment complex. And he's in the breezeway of an apartment complex when just prior to 6 a.m. this morning, there's a man walking his dog. As he walks past, he hears a guy going, pow, pow, pow. And he looks, and there's this 19-year-old who is about 5'5" and 125 pounds, according to the information on his driver's license, as if he's got a gun and he's making this noise, pow, 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 but he doesn't have a gun. So he speeds up. He walks faster. The guy comes out of the stairwell and grabs him on the shoulder. He turns around and shoves him down. And then he runs and goes up to his third apartment floor. He has a roommate up there, and he tells them, hey, this guy just attacked me down here. And his roommate and he come out, and they start looking for him. And our witness one, as we're calling him, who has the dog, is dialing 911 to say there's a guy out here that's acting really crazy, really bizarre. And as they're looking for him, there is another couple that came out of their apartment on the second floor, and as they said, they went down to smoke. And they learned of this event that took place. So at that time, who is now our suspects, Brian Medeiros, Medeiros, a white male who's 25, goes down to his car and gets his handgun, a Taurus, and he puts it in his waistband and covers it with his shirt. They finish smoking. He goes back up to the second floor, which is where their apartment is, and he tells his girlfriend or fiance to go inside. He hears noise on the third floor. And he goes up to the third floor, and as he's on the landing, there's the landing on each side of the apartment complex, he sees the guy laying, our victim, Divine, laying flat on his back on the other landing. And someone's trying to talk to him. And it turns out that it is not the person with the dog, but his roommate. So the guy gets up and he goes on up to the third floor, our victim, Divine. Our shooter goes up, sees him there. The victim turns around and starts down the other stairwell. Well, our shooter comes down his stairwell, and then we see where our victim, Divine, is walking directly toward our shooter. And even though he told his girlfriend to go inside, she's standing at the door, but now they see he's got his pants down. So if you can imagine this, our victim has his pants down to mid-thighs. It's clearly indicated he doesn't have a firearm. And he's walking directly toward our shooter, Brian Medeiros. Brian Medeiros then does something that's interesting. He pulls his gun and he shoots him. And when he shoots him, he says it has no effect, and the guy's really close to him. So he said, I'll walk around him, and I start past him, and he turns around to follow me, and I turn around and shoot him some more. And he's caught up with me, and then I walk past him again, and as I'm going down the staircase to the first floor, he follows me and he tumbles down behind me, and that's where he dies. Ladies and gentlemen, we have done an exhaustive investigation all day, and the investigation's not over. We have this law in Florida called Stand Your Ground. So the issue is, was Brian Medeiros standing his ground? At this initial point in the investigation, it clearly appears to us that Brian used too much force. The law talks about protecting yourself from yourself or others from imminent death, serious bodily harm. The guy's 5'5". He's 125 pounds. He's bizarre and out of his mind and rambling. He's laying on his back part of the time, talking incoherently. But is he a danger? And to what level is he a danger? Well, the fear is in the mind of the shooter. The second issue we have problems with, in addition to using too much force based upon being able to see everything, he doesn't have a weapon. He doesn't have a knife. He doesn't have a gun. He doesn't have a stick. He's acting bizarre. He doesn't have a right to be there. But then, instead of going into his apartment, he's not standing his ground. He follows and goes up to the third floor where he hears sounds. So he engages the guy when they both come back down the stairwell to the second floor. But had he simply gone into his residence, there would not have been a problem. So there was a lot of discussion about the stand your ground issue. At this point in the investigation, we can't articulate that he was in valid fear based upon the initial information we see. It's clear he didn't have a gun. It's clear he was out of his mind. It's clear that the shooter, had he initially came in contact with this guy, might have been able to articulate that more clearly. But at this point in the investigation, he walks past his residence and up the flight of stairs, or halfway up. He goes up to the landing where he can see onto the third floor, only to see our person on the third floor. And the person on the third floor, it's not like he's up there protecting someone else, because there is no conflict or fight or confrontation of violence at that moment in time. So he's being arrested. He's going to jail tonight. I've said over and over and over, and I've said it to the news media over the years. I've said it at civic club meetings. People who do not understand the stand your ground law will end up arrested because they misjudged what it means. And what it means is simply this: if you've got a right to be where you are, and someone uses force or puts you in fear of that, then you're good to go. But he actually pursued the guy up a flight of stairs. So he wasn't standing his ground. He was following him up. It's a very difficult case for the state attorney's office, but certainly we believe there's significant probable cause that, given the discussion on when you stand your ground, and we're stating at this point in the investigation, he followed him up the stairs. He's not standing his ground. He's following him. He's looking for him to engage him. And number two, when the dude's got his pants down to his mid-thighs, it's evident he doesn't have a weapon at all. What the shooter didn't know, that the man walking the dog knew, when the guy came on him and grabbed him by the shoulder, the man with the dog simply shoved him down. And if the guy had been that big a threat, when he got to his apartment, why did he and his buddy come back out looking for him while he's trying to make a 911 call? He had bad reception in his apartment, but he and his buddy came out looking for him. This is a very difficult case. But here's what we know. We got a 19-year-old kid with a criminal record. He was first arrested when he was 14 years old. He's got 10 felony charges. One a robbery at 14, some burglaries, some misdemeanors. So he's no angel. But we also have the shooter who has no criminal history, but we can see at least two events where he's been involved in an altercation involving a firearm. In fact, he alleged that his brother was choking him, and he shot his brother. Our shooter has shot another person. All of those charges ended up getting dropped, I guess, because family deal, maybe brother didn't want to prosecute. But then on another occasion, he and his brother were involved in an altercation with a repo guy, record driver, where there was a gun there. So we know that the shooter today has shot someone before and was not criminally charged. We know that there's a report that we've been able to find today that the shooter had another conflict involving a firearm with his brother. Don't know which one was holding the gun. We're suggesting that he didn't know what the law said. We're suggesting that he was outside the bounds of stand your ground. Any questions?
What charges is he facing at this point, Sheriff?
We are still investigating the homicide charge that's appropriate to bring. It'll be someplace between manslaughter or second-degree murder, and they are discussing those charges at this time. But there will be a homicide charge brought against him today. And then we're investigating to see whether or not any other charges are appropriate.
Is this the first case you have brought against somebody who accusing them of misusing the Castleback doctrine or stand your ground?
I don't know. I can't answer that. But I can tell you that we will work with the state attorney's office to complete this investigation. But the evidence is obvious to me at this early stage of the investigation that there was too much force used, and that instead of standing your ground, he was actually seeking the guy out. And at the end of the day, criminal record or no criminal record, he's a 19-year-old kid who was messed up on drugs and acid, according to his friends, and was acting horribly bizarre. And the end result was he died. He died of multiple gunshots.
You know how many gunshots?
Don't know yet. It was multiple gunshots. He was shot more than once.
Has the suspect spoken with your investigators at this point?
Yes, the suspect has cooperated and given us his statement, as well as the witnesses.
Did he bring up this stand your ground law as part of his defense and his statement to your investigators?
I'm not sure what he told them. That's the obvious issue here today. Is it stand your ground? Is it manslaughter? Is it stand your ground? Is it second-degree murder? Our suggestion is, at this point in the investigation, we have to look at the totality of the circumstances. And the totality of the circumstances are simply these. We got a 19-year-old kid that shot multiple times and is dead. He was on drugs. He shouldn't have been in this apartment complex. But we don't see a level of violence that's articulated to my satisfaction that warrants the use of a firearm. And when the firearm was used, he had gone up pursuing or looking for the victim. The victim, and when he saw the victim come down to the second floor, he came back down to the other stairwell on the second floor, and as he's walking in, that's when the victim starts toward him, going pow, pow, pow with his fingers. But he has no gun. He's just out of his mind on drugs. But had he gone into the house, into his apartment, with his girlfriend like he directed her to go, even though she didn't, she stood outside the door, because curiosity. And then she went in and closed the door when she saw the guy coming down the gangway or the breezeway with his pants down. I don't know if he understood the law or not, but I understand at this early phase of the investigation, it's clear to me he used too much force, and he wasn't standing his ground. He was pursuing the guy. He was looking for him.
I'm sorry, quick question. I'm confused. The victim or the suspect was the one with the background who shooting his brother?
The shooter has the background of shooting his brother in a domestic event.
Okay, and the victim?
And the shooter also, with that brother or another brother, had an armed conflict with a repo agent. The victim, who was 19, had a robbery charge when he was 14 as a juvenile, and some burglaries and some resisting and some misdemeanors. And today, he would have been trespassing on this property once we got there. But had everybody just waited for us to go there and arrive, because no one was in imminent danger according to the initial information of our investigation. No one was in imminent danger. The one guy who could articulate that he was shoved the guy down and went up to his third floor apartment. And then he came back out with his buddy. So if the guy posed that much of a threat, I don't think he would have come back out.
So deputies were already en route to this complex while the shooting took place there?
We were on our way there before the shooting took place, because the guy who was walking his canine called us. And we were getting other calls when the gunshots rang out.
Any surveillance cameras on the property to help document? You feel you have reliable witnesses who saw this, or is there any video to help?
We are looking for any surveillance cameras. There are none on the grounds of the apartment complex, and we've not been able to find any to this point. If someone's got some, we'll take a look at it. Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, the gentleman walking the dog is who saw Divine do the pow pow pow.
Both. When supposedly, according to our shooter, when he was coming down, he had his fingers out the second time. Supposedly. But that's after he saw him laying flat on his back being crazy on the landing. That's after our shooter walks past the door of his apartment, tells his girlfriend or his fiance to go inside, and pursues and goes up to the landing and can see up on the third floor where our victim has now gotten up and gone to the third floor. There were people that were trying to talk to him. What's your name? What's going on? And he was babbling. We see no reason for him to have been shot to death at this early stage of the investigation.
From this area, Sheriff?
He's from Orlando, and all of his friends were from the Orlando area.
And are they cooperating with the investigation as well?
They have cooperated with the investigation, and we've also served a search warrant on their motel rooms, and we have arrested one for a violation of a curfew on a probation. We've seized some marijuana that needs to go to the lab, but they were very cooperative as well.
So can you just repeat the suspect's full name for us before we answer?
The suspect's full name is, I don't know if it's his full name, is Brian Medeiros, Medeiros.
25, you said, sir, correct?
25.
Brian with an I or a Y?
Why?
Thank you.
Oh, good question. And how old is he? I'm sorry.
Brian is 25. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of those events where the shooter will articulate that he's right. The investigative information that we determined early in this investigation, we don't see that.
And Sheriff, I should say that this is one of the criticisms about the Castle Doctrine and the Stand Your Ground Doctrine, that it would be broadly misapplied and anyone could shoot anybody at any time and claim self-defense. Does this case confirm some of those fears?
No. This case confirms just the opposite of that. I don't know what he was thinking, or whether he was thinking stand your ground, but it shows you can get arrested when you think you're standing your ground, and you're not. And that's what we're saying. Not only do we believe he's not standing his ground, but he pursued the guy initially, but he used too much force, because clearly the guy has no firearm, he has no gun, he has no knife, he's 5'5", he's a little bitty dude. So it's not like he had his hand in his pants, he made some overt statement, he said, I got a gun, I'm gonna shoot. We're having trouble seeing how he articulates that level of force at this stage of the investigation. There's a lot of work to do on this case, but I think the message is clear tonight. You can get arrested when you go shooting people, when in fact my suggestion is to stand your ground. In my understanding, means you're where you have a right to be, and someone comes upon you with this force or threat of force in your mind at that moment in time, not for you to seek out and go to a problem. You see, and that's my argument. He wasn't standing his ground. You can't run into a problem and then say, oh, I'm just standing my ground. No. You have a right to be there, but you ran to the issue.
is he detained? He's not arrested, not booked on charges, not charged?
No, he's going to be arrested tonight. He's in our custody.
Okay.
When is this hearing? His bond hearing's tomorrow?
He'll have first appearance tomorrow, and then he'll have the opportunity to make bond, and he'll either make bond or he'll sit in jail until the criminal justice system moves forward.
Given these other shooting incidents, would you advise that this gentleman be held without bond up until his trial occurs?
That's not my decision. I don't get to make that. There is a bond schedule, but he will be detained until he goes before a judge where the court can determine, and he has a right to a bond, by the way.
And his hearing will be tomorrow on Labor Day?
He should have a first appearance hearing if we get him booked in tonight before the cutoff time. Otherwise, it'll be Tuesday morning.
Okay.
How many felony charges did you say the victim had? Was it 10?
The victim had 10 felony charges and some misdemeanors, no convictions.
All while a juvenile?
I don't know if they were all juvenile, but the serious ones were juvenile. He was 14, it was 5 years ago, on a robbery and some burglaries. I don't know if he had any serious ones as an adult, but he has no convictions. So the victim has no convictions. The suspect, the shooter, has no arrest, but he's shot his brother in an event, and he and his brother's been involved in another event with a repo driver where a gun was displayed as well. And today it got him arrested. Not those events, this event. This will be an interesting case to follow through the criminal justice system, because certainly you know what his lawyers are going to say and what we are saying. And understand, let me underscore once again, this is the initial phase of the investigation. And we look at the entire circumstances before us at this moment in time and see no reason that he killed that 19-year-old kid. Okay?
So it happened yesterday night?
This morning.
Or this morning?
This morning, just before 6 a.m.
Were there any drugs found in the room where they were staying? Because you said this guy was on it.
Yes. They found some suspected marijuana that's got to go to the lab, and they didn't find any acid. But his friend said he used acid and then he just freaked out. I mean, he took off just with his socks and his shorts and no shirt.
Sheriff, could you one more time say the charges, the pending charges on Brian?
The charges will be homicide charges, and they are probably manslaughter or second-degree murder. They are going through the statutes and comparing the initial information that they have at this moment in time. Understand, folks, that as is my custom with my transparency, we're giving you a lot of detailed information about an event that just happened a few hours ago. And we've been trying to sort this out all day long. And this is the best we know at this moment in time. Okay? Thank you very much.